Hello, it is Joy, and welcome to another inspired conversation. And boy, I'm really thrilled to introduce you to a woman that I met on my pilgrimage. She lives in South Africa. We met through my draw to Shakti Milan, and Shakti Milan started the Shakti Shiva Academy. And in that process, I wanted to meet the lineage of Shakti, which led me to Kali. Kali has a diverse background. I'm sure I'm going to ask her questions about it, but this is a brand strategist that was, as you put it, Kali, unconsciously marketing unconsciousness through
Correct.
alcohol.
I was actually, marketing global alcohol brands. So talk about a polarity to shift from that into working in healing spaces and consciousness.
Well, good on you. And that you're bringing, though, also your ability to tell story, to articulate messages. You know, the light side of marketing is that inspiration and that supporting people and making change in their life. So you've shifted gears and you're making changes in people's lives. You made a change in my life. And I'm just happy to be here to talk to you about so many things.
I'm delighted. I really am. And I'll tell you one thing that I think marketing gave me was the ability to put myself in my audience's shoes, because a good strategist has to understand the lives of the people that the brands need to communicate to. And so that gave me a very deep understanding of human behavior, of psychology, and also empathy, to be able to really be in that other person's life and in their shoes and walk their walk. So that was great, because that really helped me in the work that I do now.
And the work that you do now, you do a lot of things. You're a DeeJay, a Dakini, a conscious BlissDance facilitator and trainer. You do privates, you do groups. I mean, I had the great opportunity of coming to your home, your sanctuary, the Santa Fe Sanctuary, and doing a 3-day intensive with you. And okay, so before we get into all of that, let's just, because I led into this idea of your story. So you did have a big life transformation moment that took you from brand strategist. Were you in London or Dubai? I know it was international, but what happened that changed your life and put you in this new conscious direction?
I guess, you know, from a little girl, I was always interested in spirituality. I was always interested in God. I was always looking for spirit. So that was throughout my life. But the big change happened when I was actually in Johannesburg, living and working in Johannesburg, and I had a very bad horse riding accident, and I broke my left knee, shattered it to pieces. And of course, the left side is the feminine, and she was screaming for my attention, because I was so driven. I was very much in my immature masculine, goal-oriented, do, but it was a lot of action without meaning. And when I broke my knee, I just so happened, serendipitously, to meet up with a conscious dance community in Johannesburg. And I'd already been invited many times to come and dance, and I kept putting it off and saying, yeah, I'll come. But once my knee needed to be rehabilitated, I realized this is the best way to do it, is to do free movement. And so it was almost a practical decision to go to conscious dance classes in order to rehabilitate my knee, but I didn't realize I was going to actually rehabilitate my whole soul.
And that is the possibility. I'll speak for myself too, that, you know, I have a yoga practice and I love my asanas and I love the structure of it. And even within that, I do like to move and listen to my body. And then there's dance. And the spontaneity, the deep listening, the exploration, the not having it look pretty. There's no goal, there's nowhere to go. It is such a powerful exploration of self, stuckness, freedom. What do you love so much about dance? And Oh, probably important. Could you define conscious dance for those who don't know what it is, and then share what you love about it?
You know, we've been dancing as humanity since the very beginnings of time. And I guess indigenous dance has always been ecstatic. It's always been interested in dancing with the elements, dancing as a community, dancing under the stars, dancing around a fire, and going into altered states of consciousness, exploring the multidimensional aspects of what it is to be spirit in a body. And so conscious dance is really as old as humanity. And in the West, though, we began to lose our connection to movement, to dance, to tribal consciousness and altered states of consciousness as we got very much stuck in our heads, you know. And Gabriella Ross said there's 1 billion miles of territory that's been unexplored between the head and the feet. So when you start dancing, you start exploring all this territory that has been fast asleep for possibly hundreds of thousands of years. And so for me, conscious dance is simply free movement where we dance to express, not to impress. So it's not social dancing. It's not the dance of mating and social dancing. It is we're dancing to express our inner world and bring it out into the light and to get to know the infinite aspects of self through movement, through music, because really movement is the primal language, isn't it? The first thing we start to do as babies is we start to rock, and then we, you know, then we try to crawl, and then we stand and we rock again. And you, I love watching babies dance. You know, they're so uninhibited, and they hear the rhythm, and they just, you know, their little bodies just want to move to that music. And so conscious dance is simply free dance with no prescribed steps. It's not what I would call formal dance, which usually has an audience. It has a way of moving like ballet or doing Latin American dancing or Spanish
Going and
dancing.
learning the tango or some ballroom dancing, which we're back into like following other people's steps, right?
Yes, it's following your own authentic movement. Whatever's inside, you try and find gesture and form and movement, and also increasingly sound. It's interesting as we're moving into the throat chakra now from the heart. Conscious sounding is becoming a big part of conscious dance as well. So people make sounds, or they can emote, or they can roar, and find, you know, access power through that, through movement and sound. So that's also becoming quite a big part of conscious dance now.
Yeah. And you know what I love about conscious dance communities, and I'm in quotes because we can talk about there's so many different places and modalities of conscious dance. But these are usually very open spaces. There's no alcohol, there's no drugs. It's not a nightclub. It is, you know, it can be anything from here. It's like the Grange Hall, the city park. It can be a church. It can be in Maui. We did beach dance. I spent every Sunday morning going to the beach, turning on my headset of powerful life affirming music. And that's a big differentiator as well. I mean, world music with or without lyrics. You know, so it's the set and setting that really allows the people that are showing up to, as I think it's Gabrielle Roth's Sweat Your Prayers. Is she the one who said that?
She
Yeah.
did. She said, yeah, we show up to sweat our prayers. It's ritual, it's ceremony in movement and music. It is music and movement as medicine. And you're right about the music. It's very specific. It's not just any old music. It is it's for me anyway, the music I choose for my classes is it's music at the cutting edge of consciousness. I'm always tracking new music. I don't play the same music over and over again. I think that's lazy. And I think, you know, music is a frequency, it's a vibration. And so many musicians are channeling. They are channeling the guidance that we need to take us into the new world. And so I love music, and you often send me music and I
I
send
was
you
going to
music.
say, I mean, this just pause for a moment, because you know, as I'm working with so many clients and teaching, and I often now, my resources, it's not another video to watch, it's not a book to
Mm,
read, it is a song to move to, because
mhm.
I'm finding so many beautiful, beautiful awakened musicians. And yeah,
Yeah.
I love your DJing. I've had that opportunity to
Mhm.
experience it in that retreat setting, the Crazy Wisdom Retreat.
Yes.
Then also when we came and did the private work with you. And one thing that stuck out that I remember when I was doing my private retreat with Kirk, and I were doing that with you, and we did some movement, and there was definitely some like real earth-based. There was a section where I found myself slithering on the floor. I don't know what you were playing, but it brought me down to the earth.
Mm.
Um, but the exercise
Yeah, it's
that
very primal, and
yeah,
often didgeridoo or the didge will bring you right down into that very kind of reptilian brain, to take you right back to your instinctual self. Again, that's been layered over with civilization and culture and religiosity, and we've lost that feral, wild, instinctive side to ourselves. Well, not lost, but forgotten. And so you were just rediscovering that part of yourself, which is very, very important that we have it. Um, because when we're in our instincts and when we're in touch with our intuition, we can keep ourselves safe without having to be armored, and overly vigilant all the time. We can trust that our instincts and our intuition will let us know when there's clear and present danger, and when there isn't, we can just be open and relaxed and enjoy the bliss of life and be in pleasure.
yeah, yeah. There was another exercise that you did where you put on a particular track and you invited us to be what we were studying in the masculine and feminine, the mature and the immature masculine, the mature
Yes.
and the immature feminine. And I remember that less evolved masculine, which you already spoke of, right? Which is the going nowhere fast.
Right, right. Chicken with the head cut off, it's action without meaning. And that's why at the moment we're destroying our very planet, because we are acting without the meaning that comes from the guidance of the feminine, of the felt sensed intelligence. And so we're just going faster and faster and faster. We're orientating from fear and scarcity and greed, and me, because we're not feeling the interconnectedness of all life. We're not feeling from the feminine. She's the one who directs everything. She's the conductor of life. And when she conducts action, which the masculine executes, then that action is love in action. Then it is action with meaning. And then it's a virtuous circle and not a vicious cycle. And so we've got to get it the right way round, because at the moment we're just always acting from the rational intelligence, from the head. And then it's also very skewed to the left, to that linear logical intelligence, which is beautiful and it has a purpose, but not for directing action. The feminine does that. That's her job.
Yeah, I love that teaching in and of itself. And what was powerful about the actual dancing and watching you dance, the going nowhere quickly, frenetic energy, it brought it so to light. It was like an illustration and an experience in my own being and body and through watching, so that I can notice when I'm ever in that frequency in my day-to-day life.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
this kind of brings me to a little bit of Shakti Milan, because she's the founder of BlissDance, which is the type of conscious dance that you teach.
Mhm.
She, as a incredible anthropologist who was, gosh, was she a shadow dancer or what? She was a courageous woman who brought herself and then other people into shadow aspects of self. And
Mhm.
so how does Shakti's shadow work fit into Bliss Dance?
Well, it's so central to Bliss Dance, because if you had to ask me what's the difference between Bliss Dance, which is a form of ecstatic dance, conscious dance, and let's say 5 rhythms and movement medicine, and specifically BiaDanza, because actually both Shakti and I trained in BiaDanza, and BlissDance owes a lot of its a lot of the modality is based in BiaDanza, and so we're very grateful to BiaDanza, because BiaDanza is the dance of connection. It's the dance of intimacy. It's a dance with life. And BlissDance is also a dance of connection and intimacy, and it's a regeneration of life. But where we diverge from many of the other more mainstream conscious dance movements is we don't avoid the shadow. Whereas BiaDanza does. It says we've got enough sadness and, you know, separation and negative feelings in our lives. We don't need to dance them. But we have a completely different view in BlissDance, which is if you don't dance the shadow, and if you don't go into it and retrieve the gifts and the power that's trapped and repressed and lying in the shadow, then you cannot possibly claim wholeness. You cannot possibly respond to life freely and consciously, because the shadow aspects, which by definition are unconscious, are going to choose for you. And usually that choosing is an automatic habitual reaction rather than an ability to respond freely by choice in the moment. Ability to respond, responsibility, as opposed to reactivity. So we consciously and compassionately and lovingly go into our shadow aspects, those uncomfortable parts of ourselves, and those parts that have been shamed and made bad. And we go, there's no right or wrong, good or bad in Tantra. There just is unconsciousness and consciousness. And what is unconscious by definition is going to control us. So we want to be sovereign, and we want to be able to liberate those parts of ourselves that have been repressed through trauma, through conditioning, through many, many things, through acculturization, and be free and be sovereign and be wild and beautiful as we were born to be. And so the shadow is such an important part. We don't baste ourselves in the shadow. We don't stay there all day long. We go in and we come out, and then we integrate with its equal and opposite. And so we bring light and dark, shadow and consciousness together and balance them like the beautiful yin yang of masculine and feminine, which, by the way, we're not talking gender, we're talking these as energetic principles in every one of us. And that way we reclaiming, it's soul reclamation work. And because it's tantric work, we've got to do it whole. Tantra means truth, and Tantra leaves nothing out, and it includes everything, and it has no hierarchy of preference or avoidance. It just, everything is welcome. Absolutely every aspect of self is welcome. And that's a very big difference between bliss dance and other forms of dance. And in doing the shadow work, we also do a lot of body de-armoring, those places which have become rigid. Even when we want, for example, loving touch, and you get that loving touch, and the body just autonomically goes, you know, it wants it, but it just can't open to it. So we have these beautiful practices with clear agreements around boundaries that enable us to start trusting in life and being able to ask for what we want. And let's face it, we all want to be received, and we all want to be touched, because touch is another primal language, and we need it because that's what, you know, releases oxytocin and the sense of well-being and belonging and being connected and being intimate with life. And so we have beautiful practices in bliss dance to support us to ask for what we want and follow our desire. Shakti always used to say, what do you really, really, really want? And you can't know that if a lot of what you want is sitting in the shadow as well, you know, hiding away, repressed from shame, from guilt, from trauma, whatever it might be. And so the shadow is very important. And something you might not know about, although I think you and I discussed it, was the golden shadow. And the golden shadow are our repressed gifts. For example, let's say you wanted to dance as a little girl, you wanted to be a ballerina, and your mother says, you know, You can't make money being a ballerina, or you've got two left feet, you can't possibly be a ballerina. And then that beautiful dream of that little girl gets repressed. And that is the golden shadow. And so we also want to go in there to find those lost dreams that somehow got buried. You know, maybe you wanted to be a gymnast, or maybe you wanted to be a great writer, and someone crushed that dream when it was just a nascent little seed that was just ready to start growing, and it just got stomped on. So the shadow isn't only the negative, or what we consider negative or shameful aspects of self, but also our gifts that haven't had a chance to grow and flourish.
Oh, it is very true. And I'm so grateful that it is feeling like the Bliss dance and the teacher training and everything, or the practitioner training that you're creating and offering. It's not just a journey of movement or a new potential career for someone. It is deeply awakening. It is deeply awakening. And I'm curious if, what's an example of like a Bliss dance activity? Like what would be a particular prescribed type of a dance, and maybe something that people could even do.
Right. So a lot of bliss dance practices are with another person, or with a small group of people, or indeed the whole class. The way I give classes is I always spend a bit of time allowing each dancer to first connect in with themselves. I don't believe it's possible to connect intimately and authentically with another until you know where you are in the moment. What's my condition? How am I feeling? How's my body feeling? So really to have a deep and intimate connection with self first. So the first part of the class will be a warm up and an exploration into self, a deep, deep inner journey. And then in the second half of the class, we come out of that inner space. We keep, say, 50% of our awareness inside, and then we take the remaining 50% outside to connect with others. And one of the dances I love is what I call the approach dance. And it's where you line up in two lines, and you have somebody that you're facing. So you pair up, and then you make sure that you're opposite your partner. And then the invitation is to move towards your partner, but only at the pace that feels absolutely authentic and right for you. And your partner might move quite fast and take quite big strides, but for you, you might want to take little steps and maybe even move slowly. And can you resist the pressure to conform? Can you resist the pressure to do what they're doing, and rather really follow your own truth and watch theirs, maybe be inspired by theirs, and see what the arising is between the two of you? What's the alchemy when you and that person connect? You're following your truth, but something is arising that is new, that wouldn't be there if the two of you weren't meeting. So it's like 1 and 1 is 3. And the other thing is, once you take a step, you can't step backwards. So you've got to commit. And once you've committed, you can either stop there, but you can't go back. And then by the end of the track, you see where you are. Some people are embracing, some people are just standing respectfully at a distance from each other. Some people haven't moved much at all. And it's so interesting to see the map of the room and the energies. You start to see the sort of ley lines of the energy in the room. And it's such a beautiful way of having boundaries, but at the same time also connecting. So it's boundaries and connection. It's not either or. And it's the alchemy between being true to myself and also being inspired and encouraged by the other person. So I love that dance.
Well, I love that, because it really is a practice that is so important in relationship. And I know even in my life, in any relationship, by the way, there can be such a tendency to give to the other, or please the other, or do what we
Yes.
think the other wants, and to be in a situation, to be in a safe container, to let the body guide, to get stronger. I've just finished creating a course. It's called Clear the Way to Be Your Own Intuitive. And it's
Oh,
really basically, yeah, it's about spiritual sovereignty and self-esteem. And one of the core principles is to clear away that need or tendency or habit to please, and to get very in tune with self so that we are clear on our yeses and our nos, and we communicate those. And so do that on the dance floor. What a better place, you know?
and
And
as you exactly, and as you said earlier about that junior masculine dance where we were running around like the chickens with our heads cut off, when we start doing that unconsciously in our lives, that dance comes back and it reminds you, because it's visceral, it's in your cellular memory, and you go, oh, I'm in my junior masculine. And then you can make another choice. You can go,
absolutely.
do I want to be in this energy, or do I want to rather sort of meditate myself and ask my feminine what is required, and then my senior masculine can execute that with absolute skill, just like, oh, beautiful skilled focus, and
Yeah,
very little energy is wasted.
right.
So it's true that dance creates cellular memory and creates consciousness in the body, and then the body becomes more and more of a portal to infinite wisdom, because all the blockages and all the trauma and all the unconscious aspects have started to unravel, but gently, not forcing anything. There's no doing, it's just a gentle invitation to keep on unraveling and unfurling and unfolding back home to the remembering of who we really are.
Well, and this is what's so fabulous is we can get very tripped up as human beings in our brain. And this is why people go to psychologists over and over and over again and try to end some silly pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
When truthfully, we can become conscious in these kind of dance activities. And that one there about speaking my truth, meaning how close do I want to be with this person? How intimate, and letting my body guide me, and being sure of each step, each commitment, each movement towards that particular person at that particular time. And then on the receiving end, not to take it personally.
Exactly.
Maybe the person I'm dancing with doesn't want to come towards me. And imagine becoming conscious of the insecure thoughts, or what's wrong with me, or maybe a pattern of loving someone and not having that love returned. And so in a container such as what I know facilitate and teach, I'm just, for anyone who's kind of curious, I'm just like, oh my goodness, dance with Kali, which we'll get to that. You can do it online, because it's not just movement. I'm getting chills. It's personal growth. It is seeing patterns. It is moving through them and then having that visceral remembering. One of
And the
my
body, sorry, Joy, do you want to finish and then I'll.
Well, I was just going to, one of my very favorite things to do is kind of an empowered stomp, like when I'm really wanting to like claim or step into a strong place, if I'm about to do something where I know it's going to take that, right?
Yeah.
Listen to something uplifting, be in my heart space. So it's not a pretentious hard, but really like ground myself into what does it feel like to be liberated, free, expressive, and strong. And embody, and even embodying archetypes, Native American
archetypes are fabulous to dance, and we dance a lot of archetypes
okay.
This dance, both the shadow archetypes, and then we also dance, the conscious archetypes.
Wow.
But that is a brilliant way, because what you're doing is you are tapping into the somatics of the body, and soma means body in Greek, and the body wisdom includes mind. It doesn't exclude it, but it's mind used in a way that enhances our wisdom and doesn't go into that neurotic monkey mind looping. And oh, sorry, that's my phone. It's just on an alarm for some reason. So yeah, and when you move from your heart, as you were saying, you want to get into your heart. We want to go from the head to the heart. Courage comes from the French word rage of the heart. So it's the rage of the heart. It's not to say we don't feel fear, but we feel fear and do it anyway, because the dance gives us a map. It gives us a way in to moving into the unknown with courage and from our hearts rather than from, the busy monkey mind.
What were you going to say before I shared that? Did you cover it, or do you remember?
I did. I was going to talk about somatic. We talk about somatic experience and how this is a big part of therapeutic work at the moment, isn't it? And being trauma informed. These are very big and very important concepts right now in the world of healing. And more we're recognizing it's through the body. It's through the body that healing happens. And the music and the movements and the field of the class is like a transmission, and it's nonverbal, it's vibrational. And so the learning can be so rapid because it's not going back and sitting talking from our heads to a therapist. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for that. There is a place for that. But conscious dance, movement, moving with mindfulness, and doing the tantric practices through the body is a very rapid way to bring about transformation and to bring about healing. And let's face it, we need it right now. The world is changing rapidly. The old is falling away. We need to be in our hearts. We need to be in our bodies so that we can be guided into a new future that doesn't replicate the mistakes of the past. And so dance for me is the most accessible because anybody in a body can move. Anybody in a body can dance. You can be in a wheelchair and you can do bliss dance. You can have a cast on your leg and you can do bliss dance. It's not like yoga. Yoga, I feel, is a little less accessible to everybody. But everybody loves music and everybody can move. So everybody can do conscious dance.
And on this piece of, it is time with all the changes on the planet. It is time to get into our sensibility, our senses, our multi-sensory gifts, which is why I'm so much about helping people learn to live an intuitive life. But also our senses. And so the touch, the smell, the taste, the listening, the sight, all of these accentuated senses, which is a big part of Tantra and something we talked
Very
about
much.
I remember when I visited you.
The awakening of the senses, because our senses are conditioned and they're conditioned to be so narrow band. If I see from my eyes and I'm just pushing out from my eyes, I'm only seeing very little of the world. But if I see from my heart, I can see the energetics of the whole world. So I'm seeing from a deeper place. And when I listen, I imagine that every cell in my body has a little ear in it. And so my whole body can listen rather than just the way we've been conditioned to believe that sound comes in through the ears and that's it. So it opens up this infinite possibility. I call it, you can either have dial-up living or high fiber. Which would you like? Dial-up is very limited, and but I want the whole spectrum of life, of possibility. And so the senses also need to be unraveled and opened to their fullest potential.
Yeah. And I just want for anyone who's like, oh my goodness, afraid of the word Tantra. I don't know if there are any, but like you said, Kali, Tantra is truth. And there's so many elements of this totality of Tantra that I know weave into BlissDance. So no concerns. You're not going to be doing anything out of consent. I know that. But wow, is it liberating? I mean, so much of my journey, my pilgrimage was following tantric teachers, which is what led us to you. And so many of the practices that I became accustomed to that have very much truly liberated me from all these false identities, all these beliefs and conditions, what I'm supposed to look like instead of what it feels like, so the truth of the trusting of the self, coming home, coming home, coming home.
Yeah.
Okay, Collie, I want to ask some practical questions about Bliss Dance because
Mhm.
part of my intention, one, I just wanted to introduce you to my community as
Thank
one of
you.
the
I
extraordinary
I I
people that I met on my journey and learned so
I
much from.
I feel I know so many people in your community because I was on your WhatsApp group when you were traveling, and I would see all the beautiful comments from all the people that you know around the world. So I really do feel that I already know some of the wonderful beings that you are so blessed to have in your life.
Well, just I'm feeling touched. The first time we talked on the phone, we were living in Maui and we called you and said, "Hey, we're coming. We're coming to South Africa. We don't really know why, but we love Shakti Malan's teachings." And for those of you who don't know, she passed. She's no longer in body. But you are one of the people, the faculty of her school that is embodying her teachings. And I really feel that I'm in touch with her. I don't know her in body, but I know her in energy, and I know her through you and others, but my own direct connection. So yeah, but the first time I talked to you on the phone, it was more of a remembering, it
Mm,
was like something in you resonated with something in me that I had denied or hid.
right. It's
That
really our power, isn't it? It's our greatness that scares the living daylights out of us.
and
Um,
our freedom. For me, it's like, oh,
yeah.
I growing up in the United States is different than growing up in South Africa. You have
Mhm.
your own cultural issues that and ancestry, and especially a European living in South Africa.
Mhm.
But definitely coming from a very sex negative culture and a pretty conditioned box of growing up in the suburbs, my truth, my real me, I'm going to wear a shell and feathers came out, even more than ever. So anyway, thank you for really awakening. And I think, anyone else who's listening, who's kind of popping like, yep, this sounds like me.
Yeah.
It is,
And
it's innate.
Shakti's alive in many of us. Many of us who were really very fortunate to be trained by her, to be in her retreats and her workshops. And I got trained in Bliss dance with Shakti. She is so alive in all of us. Rianne, who's the founder, principal of Shakti Shiva Academy, we laugh all the time because we can feel that Shakti is absolutely using us as vessels for the teaching, and she's evolving through us. And it's really amazing. It is a true lineage, and that is um, beautiful because it gives it a home. But Shakti by nature was never prescriptive. She never wanted lots of mini me's. She always said, take Bliss dance and make it your own. Take the teachings and be authentic with them and bring your own personality, your own weird, your own character. Bring it and celebrate it. I don't want you to be a clone of me. And so that's also a wonderful part of Shakti's legacy, is that all of the teachers are very diverse and very much themselves.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think I'm gonna invite some of the other Shakti family onto my YouTube and have some conversations because
oh, that would be fabulous.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's something there. Okay, so Bliss Dance,
Mm.
okay, so there's going to be a link below. People can join you for a drop-in free Saturday Bliss Dance. You're doing this teacher training program, which is extensive. Um, what I'm really curious about is how you teach it online. What is that experience? You've got to get creative to like really.
Well, I won't pretend that it hasn't been a big challenge to create a Bliss dance training program, which relies so heavily on connection and intimacy and group work and partner work. um, as opposed to one sort of ecstatic wave where you pretty much dance a lot of the time with yourself and occasionally maybe connect with someone in the class. But Bliss Dance is very specific about intimacy and connection and learning through the reflection of the other. And so it was a challenge to come up with a training program. But what we've done is we've made it a sort of hybrid of online training where we can do the personal inner work, obviously online. We can dance that together, but find our own condition and arrive at the center of our being. Then what we can do is we can have breakaway groups. So you can go into the breakaway rooms and you can do witness dancing, for example. So one person dances, the other witnesses, and then you can swap over and then you can share. So that's a way that you can connect with someone else. And then we also have filmed many of the key practices, and we weren't sure it would work because we had to get the Bliss Dance community in and say, right, quick, do this dance, we're filming it, and then out, and now it's this dance, and finish, and and videographers, because it's very intimate, and now you've got a camera. And so we weren't sure, but there's something about if the facilitator is able to drop deep and embody the invitation that the dancers just do. They didn't even know the cameras were there. They completely forgot about them, although they'd given us consent. That was very important to be filmed. So these videos are the most amazing transmissions of the practices. So they are like little mini tutorials. And then you're also going to have study buddies, and we're going to hopefully find people who live close to each other or who have friends that are conscious dancers that you can say, can I practice this practice with you? So you might have a partner that you can practice with. You might have a few girlfriends that you say, hey, come around on a Saturday and we're going to do some practices like Shakti's workbook, Sexual Awakening for Women. You could actually go through that workbook and do it as a book club exercise, where you get your girlfriends together and do some tantric exercises. So there's that as well. And then we're going to have two in-person retreats, 8-day retreats, one in South Africa in August and one in Spain in April next year. And you can come to one or both, but it is important if you're doing the foundation training to come to one of them. And that's where you get the in-person direct experience. And that it'll be pretty intense, like the one we did with Andrew, where it was kind of 5 sessions a day. It's up in the morning, you dance before breakfast, then you dance a session after breakfast, then after tea, then after lunch, then after afternoon tea, and then in the evening. So it's going to be a very, very rich immersion into the practices. So that's how we're managing it.
Beautiful. Well, you found some amazing creative ways, and I really do encourage people to take a look, and especially, gosh, well, for the own personal development for sure, but I can just see
Primarily that's the
well,
key thing.
and those people that are really, because I have a lot of my client base are practitioners, holistic practitioners in one or multi modalities, and to bring dance as another modality into leading groups online or in person, or even working one-on-one with clients, you are
Absolutely.
going to
I
be
do that
getting,
all the time.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. It's
We,
called Bliss Dance Foundation Training for Personal and Practitioner Mastery. Because as a group, we are going to all, including myself, go through a huge transformation together. And it will enable us to be even more masterful and more skilled. And most of the people signed up are practitioners, as you say. They're all mature, they're all amazing in their own right. And then you can take those practices, and you might go, I don't want to be a dance teacher as such. I don't want to do a weekly dance class. But what I do want to do is take the tools and practices and weave them into my somatic offerings and my practitioner offerings. And that you can do. You can take 1 or 2 or 3 and use that for a particular session, for example. So it can be used in many ways. Or indeed, you could create your own dance movement out of Bliss Dance, or you can do the 3-year certification training and become a Bliss Dance teacher and take that out into the world. So it works on many levels, and it does seem to attract experienced, mature people who are ready for that, because totality tantra demands totality, doesn't it?
well, totality tantra commitment changed my world. You know,
Right.
anyone who knows me, knew me before my pilgrimage and my sabbatical and knows me now, they tell me that I've changed. And it's simply because I let go of that which I never really was, but thought I was supposed to be.
Right.
And in it, there's disruption and there
Oh,
is
yes.
absolute transformation.
I
So
always say Tantra's dangerous,
it's,
but in the
you
best
told me,
possible way.
you warned me. And it's so, and you know what? I realize I love taking risks. You know, I really, as much
That's
as
what
I
keeps us
projected that on
alive.
others. Yeah.
That's what keeps us alive. We need to walk our edge, but the beauty of it is you walk your edge, not the group's edge, not the facilitator's edge, your edge. Everybody is able to surf their own edge between the known and the unknown, between pleasure and pain, between agony and ecstasy. And
Yeah,
only you know that edge and you're going to regulate it. But if you stay on the comfort side, you're never going to grow. And if you keep stepping over your boundaries and bungee jump over yourself, you're going to traumatize yourself. So it's
absolutely.
surfing that edge all the time.
It's
And
really important.
that's what makes us feel alive. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, for the most part, we're the walking dead. There's so many living dead people on the planet right now,
Yeah.
which is sad. It's tragic, actually. Yeah. So
Well,
we want
we
to
are
wake up.
waking up. We're waking up together, Kali, and I am so
Mm,
happy we had this time to
thank you.
explore and hopefully, well, for sure, inform and inspire other people. So, okay, the
Yeah.
show down below, all the info about you. I'm going to put my dance playlist down below, my Spotify list too.
Oh, great.
We'll put info on the Shakti Shiva Academy, the BlissDance certification, your
And you know
retreat
what
center.
else we can do, Joy? We could actually give you last month's recording. You get a link to Mixcloud. There's a private group on Mixcloud where you can dance last month's dance, which was themed. What was it? Oh gosh, I can't. Oh, it was breath. It was the breath is the bridge. And that class was a complimentary class, and it's guided, and you can do it as though you are in the class. You'll feel like you're in the class, and you can dance it in your own space and time. So we'd love to give that as well as this month's class. You're very welcome to join us. It's the last Wednesday of the month, and it's free, and you'll hear a little bit more about the Bliss Dance training as well. Um, and one of the great benefits, apart from actually having these fabulous tools and practices and great music, learning about music, learning more about somatic movement, is you get to know people like you and me, and you have friendships for life, uh, because we meet in the deep. We meet so in the deep, and so you get to have incredible connections all over the world. And for me, that's one of the greatest blessings of doing this work together.
Beautiful, Kali. Well, it's the top of the hour, so I need to and bless and say namaste for all of it. So good to
Thank
spend time with
you.
you.
Thank you so much. I'll say it in Zulu, Yabonga. Yabonga. That means thank you.
Yabonda.
Yabonga. Oh,
Until we
thank
meet again. Thank
thank
you.
you, Joy.
All right.
Blessings.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for being here.